in our life. I'm so excited to introduce you guys to the very first episode of The Conscious Fork, where we're going to be forking around with some consciousness and food and me and some stories. And my amazing wife is going to be doing the filming.
So I will say goodbye for now.
Although she'll be doing some commenting too. And so I'm really happy to have you guys here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. If you guys are not familiar, my name is Dove and my incredible wife is Nicole. We're motivational speakers, we're consciousness mentors, we are business, personal development, and relationship coaches. So you might be asking, why am I doing this? Well, I want to invite you guys into our home a little bit more to get to know us. And for me, food is love. It's life and it's the way that I connect. It's also one of my ways of self-expressing. Kind of like my art, kind of like Nicole's amazing spoken word, her incredible comedy. We are all multi-dimensional beings. That means that we have other things that we need to express. And this is one way that I can express some of the things that I have learned. We've also learned over time that everything is energy. So what we put in our body is certainly going to affect the energy that we have, the vibration we have, and the way that we carry ourselves in our day. So if you're looking to have a multiple six-figure, seven-figure, eight-figure business, if you're looking to have a beautiful relationship, you want to run a marathon, or just want to feel good about life and be able to enjoy the greenness of the grass in a day, you're going to want to think about this incredible vessel as it carries you around and how you're going to get to those places. So this is why we're here, and I will say to you, I am not a nutritionist and I am not a professional chef, right? I'm just here bringing you into our kitchen, and we're going to be bringing some of my friends and some of my family. Today we have my incredible mom, and we're going to be talking with those people about interesting consciousness issues or just why we're here. And today we're going to talk a little bit about what brought me to doing this and what I was like as a kid. I'm going to be challenging you guys with some consciousness work, as well as getting to know the ins and outs on some of the things that we eat, why we eat them, or just having some fun in the kitchen, maybe with some new ingredients that you guys are not familiar with. So I'm really looking forward to this first season of the show. I hope that you guys make sure that you share this, you like it, and whatever place that you're finding this video, you follow, like, or subscribe to make sure that you don't miss any of the coming episodes. So today I'm making lunch for my beautiful mom.
Bonjour, bébé.
Hi, I'm so happy that she's here. You guys might not know, but my mom is from France and we grew up eating a lot of European food, and I'm a carbaholic. So I'm super connected to pasta and bread and all that good stuff. And one of the big things that we were big fans of growing up is gnocchi. So today I'm going to be making you a surprise lunch. Hope this goes good. When I got a little bit older, I realized that having a lot of grains in my diet was making me have a lot of inflammation in my joints, and it was making me feel heavier. And it was also not ideal for my blood type. So I didn't want to give up those things. And even though I still have the regular version of the potato gnocchi, if you guys are not familiar with, I do have it sometimes, I wanted to find another way. So today I'm making you cauliflower gnocchi. If you could see her face. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm not sure.
Okay, that's fair enough. So not only am I making you cauliflower gnocchi, I'm making it with cassava flour. Do you know what cassava flour is?
Even better.
Okay.
Some root.
Some root? Okay, that's good. I bet some of you guys don't know that cassava flour is from a root. And actually, I didn't know this, but did you know that tapioca and tapioca starch is also from cassava?
Yeah, it's manioc.
Yeah, so that's cool to know that that is connected. So I am excited to try this out, share this recipe with you guys, play a little bit, one of the ways that we always used to do gnocchi is with a homemade tomato sauce. So I definitely want to make sure I'm sticking to that route a little bit. I'm doing a tomato, basil, shallot sauce to go with it. But I've always really liked to cook. And I don't know, Mom, did I like to cook when I was a kid? Was I kind of a...
That was really interesting because you were about 1 year old and we were living in Woodstock.
Okay.
Amazingly enough, we had a fresh market and we could have fresh vegetables all year round. And you used to go in the fridge at 1 year old.
Okay.
And you pull out everything you wanted. You made me wash it, and then you climb on the counter And then you made me cut it. We had this huge pan. And you would throw everything in the pan. You would show me the olive oil.
Oh, baby Dove.
And then I would help you turn all these things. And you would put the spice, and you would take the bottle. I never stopped you for doing what you were doing. And then when it was ready to you, it's probably with the smell. Then you would call everybody to eat right now, and you would see all these grown-ups who were busy talking about business, about whatever, who followed that little one-year-old that sat at the table and ate what you cooked.
So I guess I had a pretty big opinion even at 1 year old and
Yes,
a loud
you did.
voice. Okay.
Oh, well, you were always very vocal. At 1 year old, you were holding.
Yes, she is.
You know, just like.
Oh,
But it was amazing. I mean, everybody liked your food then. You know, so why not now?
You know, I was telling them that I love to cook because for me it's the way that we love each other.
Right.
You know,
It's
and I think that this was always a part of my artistic way of connecting and sharing. And you know, we have things that come right from our root. So hearing that story is like that's right in your bloodline, right in your DNA.
Right.
You carried it through this, you know, to this new lifetime that we're in. So I want to catch you guys up a little bit about what I'm doing as my mom was sharing that story. All I did is I took a large organic cauliflower head and I went ahead and just cored it out, right? So I just chopped the bottom and the edges. You guys can cut it in half, do what feels easy for you. I just took all the major stock parts away from it. And the first thing that you want to do, and just make sure that there's no sort of bad little bits and clean those off if you have to. And the first thing that you want to do for this is you actually want to steam the entire cauliflower head in some boiling water in a pot that you can cover. So I just have sort of a basting pot here, a steaming pot, have some water in there. You're gonna fill that up. Let that cauliflower steam all the way till it's tender, and then you're able to go to the next step. So this is a little bit labor intensive. Gnocchi is kind of a labor of love, don't you think?
Gnocchi is therapy.
Gnocchi is therapy.
Yes, because it takes a very long time. You need to pay attention. It's very interesting. I have many crazy stories about gnocchi.
It's also a little bit technical too because it can just melt.
Yes, it did happen. I remember with my Italian friends a long time ago, the first time we made gnocchis, she said, okay, let's make gnocchi. So we all working for hours, and the salted water is boiling, and we put the gnocchis in, and everything melts. So she is crying, and there was no cell phone at the time, and she calls her mother in Italy, which at the time was probably 3 o'clock in the morning for her, crying that the gnocchi melted. Because for Italian, gnocchis are sacred.
Yeah.
So
I'm not disrespecting your gnocchi, Italians, okay? We're just trying something different.
right, so her mother gladly gave us a recipe, and we did everything again, and it worked. So
you know, when you were saying that, it kind of makes me think about life a little bit.
right,
You know, and when I think about business, for me, it's like, how many times do you need to just have the experience, go through the process, try it, maybe it melts and you take notes. You know, a lot of people tell me that they tell Nicole and I when we're working with them or we're mentoring them in business or personally, and they say, you know, I'm so scared. I'm so scared to try something new. I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if it's time. I don't know if I'm going to be good at it. And what's so interesting to me is that the master has to fail, right, so many more times than the beginner will even try. And so,
that's for sure.
yeah, when I think about gnocchi, it's interesting because, you know, everything is a microcosm to the macrocosm, and we can look at the tiniest thing of how we relate to a recipe, and then how we relate to life, how we relate to business, right? Do we want to take the time? Are we present with it? Do we feel okay giving it the time? Are we taking it seriously enough? Are we afraid? What does it mean to us if it doesn't work? And, you know, one of the most incredible things that I tell people, or I think one of the incredible lessons that I've had that I share with other people, you know, is that it's our failures or our perceived failures that are really the thing that allows us to have the most success in life, because that's the only thing we can take inventory of and then create a radical change or a shift or transformation in the next moment. Because when we're actually not failing, we have a win or success, we're not really sure why, right? So if I make these and they come out perfect right now, I don't know if it was because my water was the perfect temperature, I had the right ratio of flour to cauliflower, if it was the right temperature when I made the dough. What I know is that it worked, but if it fails, I can track it back and go, okay, let me see, oh wow, the mix, the dough was too soft, the water was too strong, and so it was ripping them apart. And so I think maybe looking, whether it's business, your life, your relationship, when we have challenges, mining those challenges for the opportunity to see what is it that can shift. So I've got a couple pounds of tomatoes here, organic vine tomatoes. You can use whatever your favorite tomatoes are. I like to peel them when I'm making a sauce. The skin is a little hard on your stomach, and also it's just not a really nice texture. My mom taught me to peel with a little knife. If this does not work for you guys, one of the best tricks that I know to peeling tomatoes simply and not ruining, if you notice, I'm still not cutting a large part of the tomato off, so I'm just familiar with doing this. If you guys are not, make a pot of boiling water, drop the tomatoes in for about 30 seconds. You can put an X on the top of them before you do that if you want, or you don't have to, and the skin will peel right off. Take them out, let them cool down, and let them peel right off. So I am going to just prep all of these tomatoes as we're chatting, and this is not a very hard recipe. It's just going to take you a little bit of time. It's a nice thing to do when you're sitting and talking with family. It is a nice thing to do when you have a Sunday afternoon, and just preparing everything. And while I have the cauliflower, will probably take about 15 minutes to steam, and then you're going to want to actually cool that. So you've got some time in between. It's definitely something you can do when you're, having snacks with friends and having snacks with family and so on. And it's nice to be in kind of a smooth state, and it's interesting. Gnocchi has become, I realize it's like a whole metaphor for life, but it's nice to do it when you're relaxed. And I talked about, for me, food being love, but there's actual vibration and frequency that we put into the things that we touch, the same way that the words that we speak about ourselves changes ourselves, our DNA, and the way that we're structured, the way, it's cool. I was laughing with a client the other day, and I said that it's really funny that science is finally catching up to the stuff that we've been saying for ever, and that my mom's been teaching me since I was a baby, and that I talk to my clients about all the time. But everything, all the matter is affected by our words and our thoughts and our vibration. And so if we're having a fight with our partner and we're yelling and we're putting that into our food, the reality is indigestion, stomach pain, problems with eating that food, feeling like sensitivity and allergy to it, and then it going in and affecting your body. And so when we're talking about consciousness, right, and we're talking about being conscious individuals, it's not about you guys eating only one particular way and avoiding, all of this or avoiding all of that. It's about bringing a particular consciousness to each of the decisions we make, and that feels really important to me. And that's a big theme for this show. And actually, you have a funny story about cooking gnocchi frustrated. I always think about my mom and dad cooking gnocchi mad at each other.
Well, no, when we were mad, we would decide to make gnocchis, because then we could not be mad and actually make gnocchis.
Or they would fail.
Or they would fail.
Okay, so it's actually kind of great.
So it was, I tell you, gnocchis are therapy.
I kind of like that. I'm going to give you guys that challenge as a couple. If you're having a really hard day, maybe you agree. Truce in the kitchen, calm, zen time to make gnocchi.
You have to be totally in what you are doing, because otherwise you have no dinner.
It's a good point, right? And do you think the rule should be you can't get takeout or make anything else? You gotta really calm down.
No, you can't. You need to calm down.
Otherwise, it's not fair, I think.
Right.
So I'm chopping up these tomatoes, little cubes, super simple, whatever works for you guys. And I'm gonna keep, I want to try to keep some of this stuff a little bit true to the way that we used to have our gnocchi growing up. I don't want to deviate completely. And I think it's interesting because I was talking about grains and inflammation and all that, but I think this is why it's not about the right or the wrong way to eat. It's about bringing consciousness to it, because it's not that wheat is inherently a bad thing. It's that I feel like we don't process it the same here in the United States.
Absolutely.
And it's different. It's not the same wheat you were eating as a kid.
Absolutely.
In the country in France. It's not the same thing that when Nicole and I went to Italy, 5 years ago, and we were eating bread all the time and pasta all the time, and I didn't have any sort of inflammation or tiredness or grogginess.
Absolutely.
And so, that's actually something I'll be talking about in later episodes. It's like small shifts you can make is just, okay, I'm gonna have pasta, but I'm just gonna look to see if my pasta is imported from Italy. Or, if it's just, I can avoid having, things grown a certain way that affect me. And so I want you guys to start thinking about the theme of just bringing consciousness to the things that you're doing, and not creating a judgment or too rigorous of a set of changes that can be really overwhelming, right? And that don't meet the way that you are used to living. So I think that can be really overwhelming too, is this idea that one size fits all for everybody. My mom and I eat completely differently, and we're also completely different people. We have different ancestry, because I have, my father has a different ancestry. We have different sensibilities. We have, different blood types and so on. So I think really allowing yourself to feel what feels good for me. Where did this come from? What does my body do when I eat it? And how can I start having questions about the things that I eat? And that really goes to life, all the time. I talk to people, I say, do you ask where things come from? Do you ask where your mindset is built from? Do you ask where your conditioning comes from? It's so funny. We say things like, it is what it is. Right? What does that even mean? And nothing is what it is. We say, all of these different statements, and we have no real idea where those things are coming from. So I'm going to prepare slice up thin 1 shallot. I don't do any garlic in this sauce, and that's just, I do garlic in tomato sauce that I cook a long time, or red sauce, marinara sauce. But this is different. This is just kind of a very simple sauce. It's just going to be the shallot, tomatoes, salt and pepper. I like to use a little bit of chili flakes. Sometimes that's not really traditional to how we used to have it. And then also fresh basil.
No, that reminds me of a story.
Yeah.
There's a story of this little 9-year-old girl who loves to cook, and she's watching her mom making a meatloaf.
Okay.
So she pays attention, and the meatloaf is finally ready, the oven is warm. So the mother puts it in a pan, and before she does that, she cuts both ends and throws it away. So the little girl does not quite understand, and she said, but why did you do that?
Okay.
And the mother answered, well, my mother always did that, so I keep the tradition. And she said, but still, why? She said, go ask your grandmother. So the little girl runs to her grandmother. She said, Grandma, when you make a meatloaf, why is it that you cut both hands and throw it away? She said, oh, my child, it's because my pan was too small.
Okay, that's literally the perfect story. We never, I love that. That speaks for itself. Okay. Question things all the time. So what did I just do talking about questioning? I just put a tiny bit of coconut oil, okay, in the pan. And the reason is because I started avoiding using oils that are not solid at room temperature. I talk about this in other episodes. In the future, we'll talk about it, but I'm not going to get too deep in it. There are lots of people that know more about fatty chains and what happens when they're heated. But ultimately, when fat is liquid at room temperature, what it actually does once we heat it past a certain point is it becomes carcinogenic. It actually breaks down the structure. So if you don't want to use a little bit of coconut oil because you feel like it has a strong taste, and you're not avoiding animal products, you can use butter or ghee, and especially for Italian food, because then it'll have a less flavor. Or you can just use a little bit of water as you're heating this up, but I do want to get the shallots cooking, so I'm going to put a little bit of that. And I am still going to put olive oil, but I'm going to put it after the fact. And I'm making this for my mom, who does eat some dairy, and so it would have been okay for me to do butter in here, but I'm just going to do it this way because the gnocchi themselves are technically, I mean, they are fully vegetarian, and if you want to make them vegan, they are vegan of it themselves, or you can just add different dairy, cheese, so on and so forth. Just kind of finding the center line that works for you. And even if you guys are not, vegan and you're kind of staying conscious, maybe you feel groggy, you feel congested when you're having a lot of dairy, so I'm giving you some alternatives, but you could certainly do it that way. So while you are waiting on the cauliflower, you can just get a pan or pot going low. I'm gonna simmer these or saute these shallots for a little while till they're translucent, not brown. Put the tomatoes in, a touch of water, let them cook for a little while. I'm just getting these sauteed a little bit. We're gonna reduce the temperature. I would say have this on sort of a medium to low temp. And then I'm gonna do a decent amount of Himalayan sea salt in there. And I like Himalayan sea salt because unfortunately, as the oceans get more and more affected, the salt is actually getting polluted, which is a really sad and unfortunate thing, and another reason we need to start becoming more conscious of that, down to the little things we don't realize. But Himalayan sea salt keeps a really strong purity. It also has a lot of good minerals in it. Salt is actually not a one-size-fits-all and does have a lot of health benefits to it. And so then I'm going to go ahead and just throw these tomatoes in.
If you could smell this right now, it's yummy.
And I like to get a pretty hot pan when I throw the tomatoes in, because what it actually does is it starts to get them juicing right away, but I don't keep the pan hot once we've gone to probably 1 or 2 minutes at this hotter temp. Then actually increase the temperature here so I can get them hot for a little while. 1 or 2 minutes of paying attention to them, giving them a stir, and then I'm gonna bring the temperature down. In the meantime, we're letting the cauliflower that we steamed cool. Once it's cool, you're gonna throw it into a food processor. You're gonna want about 4 cups of cauliflower, which is about 1 large head of cauliflower. I'm gonna go ahead and throw the cauliflower in a food processor. This one is still warm, as you can see. My hands are not super sensitive, but you guys can wait till it's all the way cooled down or room temperature. Put a decent amount in, and then what you're going to want to do is just get it down to almost like a cauliflower rice consistency, because you're going to blend it some more after the fact. But where this becomes a little bit multiple steps is that you actually, after this, are going to want to put it in either a cheesecloth or a clean dish towel and wring it out. You definitely want to make sure it's cool for that, because we're going to be wringing out all that water, and I'm going to show you what that looks like in a minute. But it's very important because cauliflower, whether you're ricing it or you're using it for something, one of the major mistakes that I think people use using this as a substitute, I should say not use, one that they do, is not getting the water out of it. Same with zucchini. So we like to make zucchini noodles. They are not good if you do not make sure to get the water out. So it's gonna be a little loud. I'm gonna go ahead and just pulse it. Because I think it's a lot less messy to cook it first and then get it down to this consistency. It's harder to steam it if you have it already in that consistency. So I like to steam it when it's in large pieces. So once you've got all of this cooled, you just go ahead, and it looks like this, right? It's really riced down. Just wiggle your handy dandy blade out of here. It's best if you guys have a food processor. If you don't, you could use a blender probably. I don't think you can do this anyway by hand. And then you have a clean dish rag. This is actually clean. I just do this a lot, so my dish rags are super stained. And you're just gonna go ahead and you can do this in portions, or you can do it all at once. And I will scrape the remainder in the second one. And what you're gonna do is just make a little purse, right? A pouch of it. And then you go over the sink, you start letting it, right? And you're gonna be kind of shocked how much water actually comes out of this. And I'm just gonna knead this for a while, get all the water out, and then I'm gonna go ahead and throw it back in the food processor, and we're gonna put in about 3/4 of a cup to start of cassava flour. You're gonna have to get like some arm strength in this, so talking about not putting your frustration in your food, this might be a good place to get out some of your energy. You can really lean into it, and the more water you can get out of it. It's kind of amazing because this was like one giant cauliflower, and now you're gonna be down to just a few cups. And you can totally do this in a cheesecloth as well. But I think it's kind of amazing to work with your food. And it actually makes me think about something that we're gonna talk about probably over and over again. But this is one of the most fascinating things I learned about our food. So when you're sitting here for the half hour it takes you to cook, or in this case, prep time is gonna be longer, like an hour or whatever. So not only you're smelling, you're touching the foods. And what's incredible is that as you touch the foods, the different properties in each of the foods go into your body, and it triggers the necessary enzymes. I'm sorry, I think I'm such a nerd.
Blowing your mind.
I think this just blows my mind.
Yes.
It triggers the necessary enzymes in your stomach and in your body to digest those foods. So talking about consciousness, a lot of people do not make their own food. A lot of you guys eat out, and I've actually met people. Nicole and I are from New York, and so we've actually met and had friends and had clients who they never ate a single meal at home. That means that your body is never connecting to the things you're eating, and that is, your body's having a harder time acclimating to and digesting the things that you're eating, because it's a huge disconnect, among other reasons why eating out all the time can be hard on the body. But I thought that was a really cool fact. So when I get this all drained up, we're gonna put it back in the food processor. So we've got the dried up cauliflower, or drained, strained cauliflower, and then we're gonna put 3/4 of a cup of cassava flour. And you guys can find cassava flour in a surprisingly large amount of places. Then you're just gonna go ahead and put this back on. And if your food processor has like a dough setting, you're gonna put it on a dough setting. I'm just gonna pulse this up for a little while. Pay attention. You're gonna be patient with this. Open it up and take a rubber spatula and just get it off the sides, get it sort of incorporated. And it looks like it's not going to turn into dough, but believe it or not, it's so impressive to watch this. And if you guys also have never had gnocchi, they're traditionally flour and potato sort of dumplings, and they're really awesome. It's like a baked potato pasta bonanza.
Yes.
Now, as a, you know, and it's a little bit loud for you guys, but if you start looking and paying attention, now you start you're seeing dough lines. Check that out right about now, because now we actually have some real dough forming. So this looks,
it smells like dough too.
Yeah, it does smell like dough. So now we're going to be just about right. Yeah, cassava flour has a strange smell, but once you incorporate it with other things, that smell goes away. So now it looks like I'm just about where I want to be. So I'm going to take this off, and I'm going to go ahead and put it on a floured surface, and we're going to start rolling it out. So this is fun. You get to play with your food, make a mess. This is, like I said, this is a Sunday fun, making a mess. And for those of you guys that have wondered how I cook with my long nails, my crystal nails are going right into the dough. Don't tell my nail tech. Really doesn't stop me from doing anything. The only cool thing is I can do all sorts of stuff, pick up all sorts of stuff that other people cannot. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm just gonna start incorporating this dough into a ball. And if it feels a little bit...
Look at that.
Yeah, right? And you can just keep putting a little bit more flour. This one's feeling a little bit wet to me. Every cauliflower is a slightly different size. And not only that, they also have a different sort of water ratio. In fact, if you looked at how much, wasn't that kind of amazing how much water was coming off the
It was wild.
cauliflower?
Talk about hydration if we would have left it in.
Right? Sometimes we don't think about how much we're actually getting.
Actually, I used to eat so much vegetable and fruit, and when I wasn't drinking enough water, Dove would always say, you need to drink more water. And I was like, baby, I'm getting all my water from my veggies and fruit. And then, like, you guys just saw that, so I'm just saying. I do drink a ton of water. I live in Florida, so we sweat a lot, and hydration is key. I was dehydrated once, I think last year, and it was kind of one of the scariest experiences that I ever had.
Yeah, water is important.
Yeah, you'll have like an anxiety attack. It was rough, and so I had to get myself hydrated.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and break this guy into two.
Look at that.
And make 2 more balls. Believe it or not, we're gonna do this again. I want you guys to get this down into about 4 even pieces. You can do it any way that you want. You can get a dough cutter. And again, you see me using a pretty decent amount of the flour on the surface because I am feeling that these are a little bit dry and are a little bit wet, and you'll start to just adjust to that feeling yourself. So as you get these balls going, I'm gonna go 1 more. And then what we're gonna do is I'm gonna make a big mess. And you really wanna get it pretty thin. So you're gonna do this until you're looking at probably 1/2 inch in thickness. So you gotta keep working it nice and gently. The other alternative for you guys is you can take a piece, make a kind of little round nugget, if that works for you, and you can do that. So there are a couple ways to do this. Traditionally, you'll get a nice flat or a nice long little log, and then you cut them off. And let's see, I don't really have the technique down. It's really beautiful because I'm not a chef, remember? So it's really beautiful. The people that are really good at it, they'll kind of just roll them in their hands, and then they'll create those little lines in the gnocchi. And love watching like Italian nonnas do that instead of my attempts at doing that. So take your time, do this, get all of your gnocchi organized, lay them out on a sheet, and then we'll go over to the pot. You want a big pot of salted water so that you can get these cooked, and we'll talk about how they are cooked, when they are cooked, and so on. So once you've got a plate of your gnocchis prepared, and you can prepare them all in advance, then you want to go ahead and have a large pot of salted water come to a boil and then reduce it. So you don't want to put it into like a really rumbling boil, just a similar. And then you're just going to drop these little guys right into the water.
And they're going to sink to the bottom.
Like little bricks.
Goodbye.
And you do not want to crowd the pot. So this is a patience recipe. Okay? So you can also put these in using, you know, a little spatula of some sort. You could be a slightly less aggressive than I am. I think is nicer for them.
Yeah.
So just doing it like this, getting these little guys in. And the trick to gnocchi is they take very little time to cook. Ooh, they're trying to run away from me. What you're really looking for is to make sure, so come here, Nicole.
Yes.
To make sure that they're not sticking on the bottom. You're gonna get a little debris, that's fine. They're sticking together, so they're not melting. That's not what's happening. You wanna check for that. If they're melting, then you can always test one at the beginning. If they totally melt on you, then you wanna play with the ratio. You don't have enough flour, probably they're too wet. Make sure they're not stuck to the bottom, and then what you're gonna do is just wait for them to float. Sift them out with something like this, don't throw them in a colander, and then you can put them in your clean plate. In your bowl, even if you're gonna use a tomato sauce, either have your tomato sauce there ready, or have a little bit of olive oil or a little bit of butter so that they don't stick. And I'm just gonna continue to do this until we've got all of these beauties ready.
Yes,
all right, so these little guys are starting to float.
They're rising.
All right, it's been about 1-2 minutes. And you see that they're now floating. And so as they come to the surface, they're gonna come to the surface at different times. They are done. And you're just gonna wanna put them in your dish. As I said, you can go ahead and either have sauce in there, or you can have some sort of
Yes.
fat in there so they don't clump together. And it is just the practice of patience and getting these little guys out and doing them in layers. And then we're gonna put the rest of these guys in here, and this is only half the batch, so we'll do the rest of the dough, get them all cooked up, and then let you guys see what it looks like. Plus, we gotta make sure that Mom tastes these gnocchis and see if we can get some approval on this totally grain-free version of gnocchi. So when you've got all the gnocchi that you want to serve and you don't want to let them sit out too long, we're just going to go ahead and put the sauce on top of those guys. And then I'm going to put a little bit of olive oil on top at the end because we talked about that. Putting it on at the end so that you have the raw olive oil that benefits the taste, hasn't been heated. And my last flourish is I don't like to cook my basil. It tastes great when you cook it, but it's different. So sometimes I cook the basil and then I put raw at the end, or sometimes I don't cook it at all. So it kind of depends how you guys feel. I think you always cook the basil when you're making sauces, right, Mom?
Well, I put it last.
Last, okay, so a little bit cooked. Just in the pan at the end.
Right.
Okay.
Smell that.
So yeah, that smells really good. And I like to use a lot of basil.
Right.
And I'm gonna put it on. It's just different when it's cooked versus not cooked. And I gotta say that does look, clean my hands up a little, it does look pretty beautiful.
It looks marvelous.
Doesn't it?
Yes.
So I could trick you if you were just tasting it.
Trick me. Try that.
Hand me your plate. Let's see. We're gonna have a little taste test. See what she thinks. I'll just give her a few of these. I'm not gonna overdo it because I don't want her to. Now, what I want to say to you guys about this is that I like my gnocchi really fluffy. You can tell that they're really soft and doughy, and that you don't have to leave them like this. So there is also gnocchi parisien, which is you can put down butter or oil or whatever you're comfortable with and actually toast them up in the pan so they're crispy on all sides. So be real patient with that. Or another way to get these much tenser or denser, I meant to say, is putting them in the oven and letting them bake. And it's going to get them stronger in density. So these are going to be really soft and chewy, and that's a texture thing for me. Like I really like.
You would like some, right? I bet.
Yes, but she can't have any.
You can't have any, she said.
Because there's onions.
So let's see.
And that's probably a little bit hot. But yeah, I like to really have that soft, chewy consistency because I really like, for instance, wide Asian noodles and things that are made in that kind of gummy consistency. But if you guys make these and you want them to be a little bit more firm, you can definitely bake them or saute them at the end.
So far, the consistency is perfect.
I love it. This is the only one we're going to be getting a review from.
Because it's not too mushy and it's not too firm. That's the way it should be, you see?
She's crying because she can't have any. She's literally crying. I'm sorry, baby. I make you something else.
Let's see, I'll give you a little bit, a tiny, tiny little bit, because you're going to cry. You see, she could almost have tricked me,
Almost have tricked her.
Because this is really good, actually. It's surprisingly good. I was not very excited about it, to tell you the truth.
What do you think, Soph?
But I think it is really good, right?
What's your review, Sophia?
So, I think you surprised me, and you surprised me in a very amazing way. And thank you.
I love it. This is definitely a labor of love. It is a very sort of tedious first recipe to play with you guys, but I just wanted to talk about how for me, and this is why this recipe came up for me in the first episode of the show, it's all about love and time and space. We're definitely gonna have other episodes where we're doing shorter meals, kids meals, and talking about all sorts of different subjects because again, it's not really a traditional cooking show. It's about bringing consciousness to different facets, factors, and understanding Nicole and I at a different level. So thank you so much for meeting my mom, coming into my kitchen, hearing a little bit more about me as a child, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys on the next episode. Please make sure that you like, follow, subscribe, and so on so that you don't miss any Sunday nights, and I'm really excited to see you guys next. Bye!